I'm really glad you're here today. Seriously. Out of all the things you could be doing right now, you decided to spend a little time listening, learning, and exploring a story together. That means something. So imagine for a moment that we're sitting in a quiet place, maybe with a cup of coffee or tea, just talking about life and the strange ways a dream can grow. And if you enjoy stories like this, stories that help you practice English while learning about remarkable lives, subscribing to English to Inspire helps more people find these conversations too. Today I want to tell you about a boy who once ran through the narrow streets of Brazil with nothing but a ball and a dream. That boy would grow up to become one of the most famous football players in the world. Millions of fans would chant his name in giant stadiums. Cameras would follow his every move. He would play for legendary clubs, score unforgettable goals, and carry the hopes of an entire nation on his shoulders. But before the bright lights and the pressure of global fame, there was just a small boy, a simple ball, and hours of play. That boy is Neymar. If you picture Brazil for a moment, you might imagine beaches, music, and people playing football everywhere. And in many ways, that image is real. In Brazil, football is more than a sport. It's part of everyday life. Children play in streets, on dirt fields, on small courts, between buildings. Sometimes they don't even have proper goals. Two shoes on the ground can become a goal. A wall can become a teammate. Now imagine a small neighborhood where the sun is warm and the air is full of noise. Kids laughing, people talking, music playing somewhere in the distance. In that world, a young boy is running after a ball with quick feet and a big smile. He moves fast, changes direction suddenly, and somehow keeps the ball close to his feet like it is tied to him with an invisible string. Adults start to notice something. This kid moves differently. His full name is Neymar da Silva Santos Jr., and he was born in 1992 in Brazil. But the most important influence in his early life was not fame or money or coaches. It was his father. Neymar's father had also been a football player, not a global star, but someone who loved the game deeply and understood it. Imagine a father watching his young son play. At first, it's just fun. The boy runs, laughs, falls down, stands up again. But slowly the father begins to see something unusual. The control, the creativity, the joy with the ball. Some children play football because their friends do it. But sometimes you see a child who plays as if the game lives inside him. Have you ever seen someone like that? Maybe in sports, maybe in music, maybe even in school. Someone who seems completely alive when they do one specific thing. That was young Neymar with a ball. One small but important detail about his childhood was futsal. If you're not familiar with futsal, it's a version of football played indoors on a smaller court with a smaller, heavier ball. Because the space is tight and players are close together, you have to think quickly and control the ball perfectly. Every touch matters. For young players, futsal is like a training ground for creativity. Picture Neymar as a small boy on a hard indoor court. The ball moves quickly between players. There is almost no space. A defender is right in front of him. Another one is coming from the side. For many kids, this situation means panic. They lose the ball, but Neymar starts doing something different. A quick step, a sudden turn, a small trick with his foot. Somehow the ball slips through the defenders. The other kids look at him with surprise. And the interesting thing is that Neymar is not thinking about becoming famous. He's not thinking about stadiums or television cameras. He's thinking about one simple thing: how to beat the defender in front of him. That pure joy of the game would shape the player he would later become. But talent alone is not enough. Many kids are talented. The difference often comes from opportunity and support. Neymar had both, especially through his father. His father did something very important. He didn't just push his son. He guided him. He watched carefully. He protected him from bad decisions and helped him find the right path. Think about this for a moment. In life, talent is like a seed. But a seed needs the right soil, water, and sunlight to grow. Without support, many talents disappear before the world ever sees them. In Neymar's case, that seed was growing quickly. Local coaches started talking about him. Small clubs noticed him. People began to say something that can be both exciting and dangerous for a young child. This boy is special. And when a child hears that often enough, life begins to change. The games become more serious. The attention grows. Expectations start to appear, even if the child doesn't fully understand them yet. For Neymar, this meant moving closer to the world of professional football, where dreams can grow very fast, but pressure can grow even faster. Somewhere between the laughter of street games and the structure of organized football, Neymar's journey was quietly beginning to move toward one of the most famous clubs in Brazil, a place where many legends once started their own stories. And for a young boy who simply loved the ball at his feet, stepping into that world would open a completely new chapter of life. When Neymar first walked into the youth academy of Santos FC, he was still just a teenager with bright eyes and restless energy. The training fields were simple compared to the giant stadiums he would one day play in, but for a young Brazilian player, Santos carried a powerful history. This was the same club where the legendary Pelé had once amazed the world decades earlier. For many kids, stepping into that environment would feel overwhelming. Imagine knowing that one of the greatest football players in history once trained on the same grass. But Neymar didn't walk onto the field thinking about history. He walked onto the field thinking about the ball. At first, the academy coaches noticed what everyone had already seen when he was younger: the control, the creativity, and the way he seemed to enjoy difficult situations. While some players felt nervous when defenders pressed them, Neymar often smiled. Tight spaces excited him. A defender standing directly in front of him felt less like a problem and more like a puzzle to solve. During training sessions, teammates sometimes stopped for a moment just to watch what he might do next. Imagine a practice game on a warm afternoon. The players are moving quickly, shouting instructions to each other. A defender closes in on Neymar, expecting him to pass the ball. Instead, Neymar shifts his weight to one side, taps the ball lightly with the outside of his foot, and suddenly slips between two defenders who were certain they had him trapped. The coaches exchange looks. One of them quietly shakes his head with a small smile. That kind of instinct is difficult to teach, but the road from youth academy to professional football is never simple. Many talented players pass through academies and never reach the top. The difference often comes from discipline and patience. Neymar's father understood this very well. He stayed close to his son's career helping him focus when distractions appeared. And in Brazil, distractions can appear quickly for a young player with talent. Friends, attention, small bits of fame in the neighborhood. All of these things can pull a teenager away from the long, difficult road of improvement. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you ever started something exciting, maybe a project or a skill you wanted to learn, and then slowly lost focus because other things pulled your attention away? It happens to almost everyone. The challenge is not starting something great. The real challenge is continuing when the excitement fades and the work becomes routine. For Neymar, those routine days were full of training, running drills, passing exercises, learning tactics, practicing again and again. The glamorous moments we see on television are only a tiny part of a professional athlete's life. Most of the time, it's repetition. The same movements repeated hundreds, sometimes thousands of times, until they become automatic. By the time Neymar reached his mid-teens, the excitement around him had grown significantly. People inside Santos began to talk about him as one of the most promising young players in Brazil. Scouts from other clubs were already paying attention. Rumors started spreading about European teams watching him closely, even though he was still very young. Then came a moment that changed everything. In 2009, when Neymar was only 17 years old, Santos FC gave him the chance to play for the first team. Imagine that moment clearly. A teenager sitting in the locker room, pulling on the same jersey worn by professionals he had watched as a child. The stadium outside is loud. Thousands of fans are waiting. The noise feels like a wave rolling through the building. For many young players, stepping onto a professional field for the first time can feel terrifying. Your mistakes are no longer hidden in a youth match watched by a few parents. Now every pass, every movement, every decision is seen by thousands of people. And in Brazil, football fans are passionate. They celebrate loudly when things go well, and they are not shy about showing disappointment when things go wrong. When Neymar entered that world, something interesting happened. Instead of shrinking under the pressure, he seemed to grow. During his early matches with Santos, fans quickly noticed that this young player didn't behave like a nervous teenager. He played with confidence, sometimes even with a bit of playful boldness, dribbling past defenders, attempting creative moves, celebrating goals with visible joy. It was as if the same kid who once played freely in the streets had simply moved his game into a larger arena. One night, after scoring a beautiful goal, the stadium erupted. Fans jumped, waved flags, and shouted his name. For the first time, Neymar felt the energy of thousands of people celebrating something he had created with his feet and imagination. That feeling can be powerful. For many athletes, it becomes addictive. The roar of a crowd can push a player to chase bigger and bigger moments. But along with that excitement came something else: expectation. Brazil had always loved football heroes. The country had produced legends who became symbols of national pride. And now newspapers and television programs started asking a big question. Could this teenager become the next great Brazilian star? Think about how heavy that kind of question can be. Most 17-year-olds are still trying to understand who they are. Suddenly, Neymar was being asked to represent the hopes of millions of fans. That kind of attention can lift a person up, but it can also create pressure that is hard to carry. Still, Neymar continued playing with the same joyful style that had defined him since childhood. More goals followed. More highlights. More fans began wearing his jersey. And slowly, a young player who once played futsal in small indoor courts was turning into one of the brightest new faces in Brazilian football. With every match, the spotlight grew stronger, and the football world was beginning to realize that the boy from Brazil was no longer just a promising talent. He was becoming a star whose next steps could reshape the path of his entire career. As Neymar's performances for Santos FC became more exciting, something interesting started happening around him. The stadiums became fuller. Cameras appeared everywhere. Journalists wanted interviews. Fans waited outside training grounds, hoping to see him for just a few seconds. Fame was arriving quickly, and Neymar was still incredibly young. At first, it felt like a dream. Imagine being 19 years old and hearing thousands of people shout your name as you run onto the field. Imagine children wearing shirts with your number on the back. For many athletes, that moment is the result of many years of struggle. But Neymar reached that level of attention very quickly. With the goals, the dribbles, and the joyful celebrations, he became one of the most talked-about players in Brazil. Highlights of his goals spread across television and the internet. People replayed his tricks again and again. A quick turn, a sudden change of direction, a small touch that left defenders frozen in place. Fans loved watching him because he played with imagination. His style reminded many people of the playful creativity that made Brazilian football famous. But attention can be a double-edged sword. That means something that brings benefits, but also problems. The more people admired Neymar, the more they began to compare him to the legends of the past. And in Brazil, those legends are very big names. One name appeared again and again in conversations: Pelé. Think about that for a moment. Pelé is not just a famous player. For many people, he represents an entire era of football greatness. When journalists started asking whether Neymar could follow that path, they were placing enormous expectations on a teenager who was still learning and growing. Have you ever felt pressure because someone expected too much from you? Maybe a teacher believed you should always have the best grades. Maybe your family hoped you would follow a certain career. At first, those expectations can feel motivating. But if they grow too large, they can start to feel heavy. For Neymar, the world of football was watching every move he made. Every brilliant goal increased the excitement. But every mistake also became bigger. If he lost the ball, people discussed it on television. If he missed a chance, critics wrote articles about it. Still, there were moments when Neymar showed why so many people believed in him. One evening during a league match, the ball came to him near the middle of the field. A defender rushed toward him, then another. Instead of passing, Neymar kept moving forward. One quick step, a sudden turn. The first defender slipped behind him. The second defender stretched his leg, but missed the ball by just a few centimeters. The crowd began to rise from their seats. Neymar pushed the ball forward again, now running toward the penalty area. Another defender approached. Neymar slowed for a fraction of a second, then flicked the ball slightly to the side and accelerated past him. Suddenly he was in front of the goal. The goalkeeper moved forward, trying to close the angle. And then Neymar shot. The ball hit the net. For a moment there was silence. The kind of silence that happens when people need 1 second to understand what they just saw. Then the stadium exploded with noise. Teammates ran toward him. Fans jumped and waved flags. That goal would appear on highlight shows across the country that night. Moments like that made people believe they were watching the birth of something special. During those years, Neymar helped Santos win important trophies, including the Copa Libertadores, one of the most prestigious competitions in South American club football. For the club and its fans, this victory was deeply emotional. It was the kind of triumph that reminds people why they love the sport so much. But success also attracts attention from far away. Scouts from the biggest clubs in Europe were watching closely. Representatives from powerful teams traveled to Brazil to observe the young star. Rumors began spreading through newspapers and sports programs. Would Neymar stay in Brazil longer, or would he soon move to Europe where the biggest leagues and the brightest global spotlight waited? Imagine being in his position. On one side, you have the country where you grew up, the fans who supported you from the beginning, the culture that shaped your love of football. On the other side, there are giant stadiums in Europe, famous clubs, and the chance to compete against the best players in the world. This kind of decision is not easy for any young athlete. At the same time, Neymar was also starting to represent Brazil internationally. Wearing the yellow jersey of the national team carries enormous emotional weight. Brazilian fans expect beauty, creativity, and victories. When Neymar stepped onto the field with that jersey, he wasn't just a club player anymore. He was becoming part of a national story. The pressure grew stronger, but so did his confidence. Little by little, the playful boy from the futsal courts was turning into a global star. And as the world watched his talent grow, a new possibility was slowly becoming real. A move to one of the greatest football clubs on the planet, a place where some of the most famous players in history had built unforgettable careers. By the time Neymar was in his early 20s, the football world was no longer asking whether he was talented. That question had already been answered many times on the field. The real question now was where his next step would be. The biggest clubs in Europe were watching closely, waiting for the moment when the young Brazilian star would decide to leave home. In 2013, that moment arrived. Neymar made the move that many fans had been expecting for years. He signed with FC Barcelona, one of the most famous football clubs in the world. Imagine arriving in a new country at 21 years old. New language, new culture, new teammates. And not just any teammates. Inside the locker room were players who were already global legends. One of them was Lionel Messi, a player many people considered the best in the world. Another was Andres Iniesta, known for his intelligence and calm style of play. For many young players, joining a team like Barcelona could feel intimidating. You might wonder if you truly belong there. You might worry about making mistakes in front of teammates who have already achieved so much. But Neymar arrived with the same playful confidence that had carried him from the streets of Brazil to professional football. Still, adaptation takes time. During his first months in Spain, Neymar had to adjust to a faster and more tactical style of football. European teams often focus heavily on positioning, passing patterns, and disciplined movement. Brazilian football, especially in the streets and futsal courts where Neymar learned the game, often celebrates freedom and improvisation. So imagine Neymar during those early training sessions. Coaches explaining tactical movements. Teammates practicing precise passing combinations again and again. At times he needed to slow down and observe. At other times he could add his own creative touch. Slowly the pieces began to fit together. Then another important player joined the attack at Barcelona, Luis Suarez. With Messi, Suarez, and Neymar together, the team suddenly had one of the most dangerous attacking trios in football history. Fans began calling them MSN, using the first letters of their names. Imagine a night at the massive Camp Nou stadium in Barcelona. More than 90,000 fans filled the seats. The lights shine brightly on the field. The ball moves through midfield, passed quickly between teammates. Then it reaches Messi. With calm control, he dribbles forward and sends a clever pass toward Neymar on the wing. A defender rushes toward him. Neymar takes one touch, then another. He shifts his body slightly, making the defender think he will run down the line. Instead, he cuts inside. Another defender appears. Neymar taps the ball through a small gap and accelerates forward. Now the crowd begins to rise. He lifts his head and sees Suarez moving toward the center of the penalty area. With a quick movement, Neymar passes the ball across the box. Suarez strikes it into the net. Goal. The stadium explodes with sound. Teammates run toward each other, smiling and shouting. Moments like that began happening more and more often. The three attackers seemed to understand each other almost instinctively, like musicians playing the same song without needing to speak. During the 2014 to 2015 season, that connection helped Barcelona achieve something extraordinary. The team won 3 major trophies in a single season: the Spanish League, the Copa del Rey, and the Champions League. In football, winning all 3 in one year is called a treble, and it is extremely difficult to accomplish. For Neymar, the Champions League final was a moment he would never forget. Playing in one of the biggest matches in club football, he scored a goal that helped secure the victory. As the final whistle blew, players fell to the ground with exhaustion and joy. Confetti filled the air. Fans celebrated wildly in the stands. Think about the journey that led to that moment. A boy playing futsal on a small indoor court in Brazil. A teenager scoring his first goals for Santos. And now standing on one of the biggest stages in world football as a champion of Europe. But success brings new challenges too. As Neymar grew more comfortable in Barcelona, he also started thinking about his own place in the team. Messi was still the central figure, the player around whom everything revolved. Neymar respected him deeply and learned a great deal from playing beside him. Yet inside every great athlete, there is a quiet voice that asks an important question. What if I could lead my own team? This question is not about disrespect or ego. It is about ambition, about wanting to discover the full limits of your abilities. Many athletes reach a point where they wonder what they might achieve if they step into the main spotlight themselves. For Neymar, that question slowly grew louder in his mind, and soon an opportunity would appear that promised something bold, something risky, and something that would shock the entire football world. During Neymar's years at FC Barcelona, fans around the world were witnessing football that felt almost like art. The partnership between Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Neymar created a style of attack that was fast, creative and unpredictable. Defenders often looked confused, unsure which player to focus on, because all three were capable of changing the game in a single moment. But even within that beautiful football, there was one night that would become unforgettable. It was a Champions League match against Paris Saint-Germain. In the first game of the knockout round, Barcelona had lost badly. The score was 4-0 for PSG. In football terms, that deficit felt almost impossible to overcome. To move forward in the competition, Barcelona needed to score at least 4 goals in the second match, and they also needed to prevent PSG from scoring. Many fans believed the story was already finished. Imagine the atmosphere before the second match at Camp Nou. The stadium was full, but there was a strange mixture of hope and doubt in the air. Supporters wanted to believe their team could do something special, yet the numbers were difficult to ignore. 4 goals is a huge gap at the highest level of football. The match began with energy. Barcelona attacked again and again, pushing forward with determination. Early in the game, they scored the first goal. The crowd roared with excitement. A small spark of hope appeared. Later, they scored another goal. Then another. Now the stadium was shaking with noise. At one point, the scoreline brought Barcelona close to the impossible dream. But time was running out. The clock moved past 90 minutes. Fans looked nervously at the scoreboard. Even with the progress they had made, Barcelona still needed more goals. Think about a moment in your life when you were chasing something that seemed almost out of reach. Maybe a difficult exam, a job opportunity, or a personal challenge. Sometimes you work hard and get close, but the finish line still feels far away. That was the situation on the field. Then Neymar stepped into the center of the story. With only minutes remaining, Barcelona earned a free kick just outside the penalty area. Neymar placed the ball carefully on the grass. The stadium became quiet for a brief moment. Thousands of people held their breath. He took a few steps back. Then he ran forward and struck the ball with precision. It curved beautifully through the air and flew into the net. Goal. The stadium erupted. Fans screamed with disbelief and joy. But the drama wasn't finished. Barcelona still needed one more goal to complete the comeback. Only seconds remained. During the final moments of the match, Neymar received the ball again. This time he lifted a delicate pass into the penalty area, sending the ball floating toward a teammate. The pass was perfect. A Barcelona player reached it and directed it into the goal. Suddenly the impossible had happened. Barcelona had completed one of the most incredible comebacks in football history. The players ran across the field in celebration. Some fell to their knees. Others jumped into the arms of teammates. The noise inside Camp Nou was so loud that it felt like the entire stadium was shaking. And Neymar had played a crucial role in those final dramatic minutes. Moments like that are why people fall in love with sports. Football is not just about tactics or statistics. It's about emotion, belief, and the strange magic that can happen when people refuse to give up. But even while Neymar was experiencing these incredible nights with Barcelona, something deeper was happening inside him. Success can sometimes create a new kind of question. When you achieve great things as part of a team, you may begin wondering what your own individual path might look like. Neymar had learned a great deal playing alongside Messi and Suarez. He had won major trophies, He had become one of the most recognizable players in the world. Yet there was still a quiet thought growing in his mind. What would happen if he stepped out of the shadow of Barcelona's biggest star and tried to lead a team himself? This kind of decision is never simple. Leaving a successful environment can feel risky. People might criticize the choice. Fans might not understand. But sometimes growth requires stepping into uncertainty. Soon, Neymar would make a decision that shocked the entire football world, a move so dramatic that it would become one of the most talked about transfers in sports history. For many football fans, Neymar's life at FC Barcelona looked almost perfect. He was playing beautiful football, winning trophies, and sharing the field with players like Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez. The team was strong, the fans loved him, and the future seemed full of more victories. From the outside, it looked like the ideal place to stay for many years. But inside the mind of an ambitious athlete, things are often more complicated. Success can bring comfort, but it can also create a strange feeling of limitation. When you are part of a team with a clearly defined leader, you may begin wondering what you could achieve if you were the central figure. For Neymar, this thought slowly grew stronger. It wasn't about disrespect toward Messi or the club. In fact, Neymar often spoke with admiration about Messi's talent and leadership. But deep inside, he wanted to test himself in a different role. He wanted to discover what it felt like to carry the main responsibility for a team's success. Around this time, an opportunity appeared that seemed almost unbelievable. Paris Saint-Germain, often called PSG, was building an ambitious project in France. The club wanted to become one of the most powerful teams in world football. To do that, they needed a superstar who could become the face of the club, a player who could lead the team and inspire fans. They believed Neymar could be that player. In 2017, PSG made a move that shocked the entire football world. They activated Neymar's release clause and paid a transfer fee of about 222 million euros. At that moment, it became the most expensive transfer in football history. Think about that number for a moment. 222 million euros. The figure was so large that many people could hardly believe it. Newspapers everywhere talked about it. Sports programs discussed it for days. Fans argued about whether it was a good decision or a huge risk. Suddenly, Neymar wasn't just changing clubs. He was becoming the center of one of the biggest stories in modern football. Imagine the moment he arrived in Paris, cameras flashing everywhere, fans waiting outside the stadium. The pressure was enormous. When a club spends that much money on a player, expectations grow instantly. People don't just hope you play well. They expect greatness. During his first matches with PSG, Neymar showed flashes of the talent that had made him famous. He dribbled past defenders, scored impressive goals, and brought excitement to the French league. The stadium often filled with fans eager to watch him perform. One evening in Paris, the ball reached Neymar near the edge of the penalty area. A defender rushed toward him. Neymar gently lifted the ball over the defender's leg, then controlled it again before it touched the ground. The crowd gasped. With one more quick movement, he sent a powerful shot into the top corner of the goal. The stadium exploded with applause. Moments like that reminded everyone why PSG had taken such a bold step. Neymar had the ability to create magic in a single second. But leading a team is different from being part of a famous trio like the one he had in Barcelona. Now the responsibility felt heavier. Every result, every performance, every injury became a headline. Critics watched closely. If PSG lost a match, some people blamed Neymar. If he played brilliantly, others said he should do even more. Fame at that level can feel like living under a bright spotlight where every movement is visible. Have you ever experienced something similar, even on a smaller scale? Maybe you accepted a new responsibility at work or in your personal life. At first it felt exciting, but soon you realized that leadership also means carrying pressure. For Neymar, that pressure became part of daily life. Still, he continued chasing the dream that had brought him to Paris, helping PSG reach the highest level of European football and proving that he could lead a team on the biggest stages. But football careers rarely follow a perfectly smooth path. Just when things seem to be moving forward, unexpected challenges can appear. For Neymar, those challenges would soon arrive in a painful form that every athlete fears. Serious injuries, moments that force you to stop, wait, and question how strong your determination really is. When Neymar arrived at Paris Saint-Germain, many people imagined a smooth path toward glory. The club had invested a historic amount of money in him. Fans were excited, and his early performances showed the same creativity and skill that had made him famous in Brazil and Spain. For a while, it felt like everything was moving in the right direction. But football, like life, rarely follows a perfect script. One evening during a league match, Neymar chased the ball near the edge of the field. A defender rushed toward him, trying to stop his movement. Their legs collided awkwardly, and Neymar fell hard onto the grass. At first, the stadium became quiet in that uncomfortable way crowds often do when something looks wrong. Neymar stayed on the ground. Players from both teams looked concerned. Medical staff ran onto the field. Slowly, Neymar tried to stand, but his body language showed pain. He was helped off the pitch, and the crowd applauded as he left. In football, injuries are always a possibility, but for players whose style depends on speed and agility, they can feel especially frightening. Later it became clear that the injury was serious. Neymar had fractured a bone in his foot. That meant weeks, sometimes months, away from competition. Imagine what that feels like for an athlete. Your entire life revolves around movement, training, and competition. Then suddenly you are told to stop. No matches, no goals, just recovery. For many athletes, those quiet months are mentally harder than the games themselves. Training sessions are replaced with medical appointments and rehabilitation exercises. Instead of running freely on the field, you repeat careful movements in a gym or therapy room, trying to rebuild strength step by step. During this time, critics also became louder. Some people questioned Neymar's lifestyle. Others wondered whether the enormous transfer had truly been worth it. Headlines appeared discussing his injuries and PSG's struggles in the Champions League. When you are famous, every challenge becomes public. Millions of people discuss your difficulties as if they were commentators watching a movie. Think about that pressure for a moment. Most of us face challenges privately, among friends or family. Neymar was facing his while the entire football world was watching. Still, recovery continued. Day after day, Neymar worked with trainers and doctors, stretching, strengthening, carefully rebuilding confidence in his injured foot. These moments rarely appear on highlight shows. Fans see the goals and celebrations, but they rarely see the long hours of quiet work behind recovery. Finally, the day came when he could return to the field. The first matches after a serious injury often feel strange. Your body remembers how to move, but your mind can hesitate for a fraction of a second. What if the injury happens again? What if the pain returns? Many athletes must overcome this invisible fear before they can truly play freely again. In one match after his return, Neymar received the ball near the sideline. A defender moved toward him aggressively. For a brief moment, the situation looked exactly like the moment when his injury had happened months earlier. But this time Neymar did not hesitate. With a quick movement, he pushed the ball forward and accelerated past the defender. The crowd cheered loudly. It wasn't just a simple dribble. For Neymar, it was a small victory over doubt. Yet the journey remained complicated. Injuries appeared again at different moments, interrupting seasons and important competitions. Each time he had to rebuild rhythm and confidence. Each time critics asked the same question: could Neymar fully reach his potential if his body kept stopping him? Life often presents this kind of challenge. Sometimes progress feels like a straight line forward, but more often it looks like a series of steps, pauses, and setbacks. What matters is not avoiding difficulty entirely. What matters is how we respond when those difficulties arrive. Despite the injuries and criticism, Neymar continued producing moments of brilliance for PSG. Spectacular goals, clever assists, flashes of creativity that reminded everyone of the joyful player who once entertained crowds at Santos and Barcelona. And while his club career remained under constant discussion, another stage always carried special emotional meaning for him: the opportunity to represent his country. Whenever Neymar put on the yellow jersey of Brazil, the story felt different. The expectations were enormous, but so was the pride. For a boy who had grown up dreaming about football in Brazil, playing for the national team was more than just another match. It was the chance to bring joy to millions of people who saw football as part of their identity. Those moments with Brazil would soon bring both incredible excitement and deep heartbreak, reminding Neymar once again that the path of a sports career is never only about victory. For many Brazilian players, wearing the yellow jersey of the national team is one of the greatest honors imaginable. When Neymar first stepped onto the field representing Brazil national football team, it was more than just another football match. It was the realization of a childhood dream. Imagine a young boy in Brazil watching international matches on television. The stadium is full, the crowd is singing, and the players are wearing that famous yellow shirt. For generations, that jersey has carried memories of incredible players and unforgettable victories. To wear it means you are not only playing for yourself, but for millions of fans across an entire country. From the beginning, Neymar seemed comfortable in that role. His style of play matched the joyful, creative image that many people associate with Brazilian football. Quick dribbles, daring moves, and a willingness to try something unexpected. Fans loved the excitement he brought to the field. One of the biggest moments came when Brazil prepared to host the 2014 World Cup. This tournament was special because it was happening on Brazilian soil. Imagine the emotional weight of that situation. The entire country watching, hoping, dreaming of lifting the trophy at home. For Neymar, the pressure was enormous. He was still young, yet many fans already saw him as the player who could lead Brazil to victory. During the early matches of the tournament, he delivered some beautiful performances. Goals, creative plays, and moments that gave supporters hope. But then something happened that changed the mood of the entire nation. During a match in the knockout stage, Neymar chased the ball near the midfield line. A defender jumped into a challenge, and Neymar fell awkwardly. At first it looked like a normal collision, but soon it became clear that something was seriously wrong. Neymar had suffered a painful back injury. Doctors later confirmed that he would not be able to continue playing in the tournament. Imagine that moment for him. The World Cup happening in his own country, the dream of helping Brazil win the trophy, and suddenly he had to watch the rest of the competition from the sidelines. For an athlete, that kind of disappointment can feel devastating. The Brazilian team continued without him, but the emotional impact was huge. Fans felt worried and uncertain. Teammates missed his creativity and energy on the field, and Neymar himself had to experience the strange feeling of being powerless, unable to help directly. Think about a moment in your own life when something important was taken away suddenly. Maybe you prepared for an opportunity, and then circumstances changed. Those moments test our patience and resilience. They force us to accept things we cannot control. In the years that followed, Neymar continued playing an important role for Brazil in different international tournaments. Sometimes he delivered brilliant performances. Other times the team faced difficult defeats. Football at the international level can be unpredictable, especially in tournaments where a single match can change everything. Still, Neymar's connection with Brazilian fans remained strong. Children across the country copied his style when they played in streets and parks. They tried his dribbles, his celebrations, his confident movements with the ball. In many ways, he had become a symbol of modern Brazilian football. Yet life for a global sports star does not exist only inside stadiums. Outside the field, Neymar's world was filled with new experiences, business opportunities, friendships with other celebrities, and the responsibilities of family life. Fame brings privileges, but it also brings constant attention. Cameras follow you not only during matches, but also during ordinary moments of daily life. For Neymar, balancing those different roles became part of his personal journey. The playful boy who once chased a ball through Brazilian streets was now living in a world of international travel, media attention, and enormous expectations. And somewhere inside that complicated life, he continued searching for something simple that had always been there from the beginning, the pure joy of playing football, the same joy that once made a young kid smile every time the ball touched his feet. As Neymar's career continued evolving, people around the world often focused on his performances on the field. Goals, assists, injuries, victories, defeats. Football fans love to analyze every match, every movement, every decision. But the life of Neymar has always included much more than what happens during 90 minutes of play. Behind the famous athlete is also a person learning how to live under constant attention. Think about what it means to become globally famous while still very young. In Neymar's case, cameras and journalists began following him before he was even 20 years old. At an age when most people are still discovering who they are, he was already being discussed on television shows and in newspapers across the world. One part of his life that became very important was family. Neymar has often spoken about the strong influence of his father, Neymar Santos Sr., who helped guide many of the decisions in his career. Having someone close who understands the business side of professional sports can make a big difference. Contracts, sponsorships, negotiations with clubs, travel schedules, these things can quickly become overwhelming for a young player. Imagine trying to focus on playing your best football while also managing millions of dollars, international travel, and endless media requests. Without trusted people around you, it would be easy to lose balance. Another important change in Neymar's life came when he became a father. His son, Davi Luca, was born when Neymar was still very young. Suddenly, the playful football star had a new responsibility: raising a child. Many athletes say that becoming a parent changes the way they see the world. Victories feel different. Losses feel different. Your decisions begin to affect someone else's future. There are stories of Neymar finishing a match and immediately calling or visiting his son, wanting to share those moments together. In a life filled with noise and attention, family can provide a sense of grounding, something stable that reminds you of what truly matters. Outside football, Neymar also entered the world of business and entertainment. Sponsorship deals with global brands, charity projects, social media presence, followed by hundreds of millions of fans. His name became a brand recognized far beyond football stadiums. This level of fame brings opportunities, but it also creates constant discussion. Every photo, every public appearance, every celebration can become a topic of debate. Some people admire his lifestyle and personality. Others criticize it. Living under that kind of spotlight requires a thick skin, in other words, the ability to accept criticism without losing confidence. Have you ever noticed how easy it is for people to judge others when they only see small pieces of a person's life? Social media often shows highlights, but not the full story. For Neymar, millions of people formed opinions about him based on short videos, headlines, or single moments on the field. Yet through all the noise, one thing remained consistent: his love for football. There were still matches when the ball reached his feet and he produced something magical. A clever dribble that left defenders confused. A pass that created a goal out of nothing. A moment that made fans stand up and cheer. Those flashes of creativity reminded people why Neymar had captured the world's attention in the first place. Not because he was perfect, but because he brought a sense of joy and imagination to the game. And perhaps that is one of the most interesting parts of his story. Neymar's career has never been simple or quiet. It has included brilliance and controversy, celebration and criticism, triumphs and setbacks. Life often looks the same for many of us, just on a smaller stage. We succeed sometimes. We make mistakes. People form opinions about us without knowing the whole story. The real challenge is continuing to move forward, despite all of that. As Neymar's journey continued, the conversation about his legacy grew louder. Fans and analysts began asking a difficult question that appears for every great athlete. When the career is finished and the stadium lights fade, how will people remember the story? When people talk about the career of Neymar, the conversation is rarely simple. Some fans focus on the incredible goals, the dribbles that seemed to break the laws of balance, and the moments when he made stadiums explode with excitement. Others focus on the injuries, the controversies, or the expectations that followed him everywhere. But if we slow down for a moment and look at the full journey, a more interesting picture begins to appear. Imagine again the small boy running through the streets of Brazil with the ball at his feet. At that time there were no cameras, no headlines, no debates about transfer fees or pressure from millions of fans. There was just the pure joy of playing. That joy carried him from neighborhood courts to the academy of Santos FC, where people first realized that his talent might reach far beyond local games. From there the road became bigger and brighter. He became a star in Brazil, then moved to Europe to play for FC Barcelona, where he shared unforgettable moments with teammates like Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez. Together they created nights of football that fans still talk about years later. The creativity, the quick passes, the feeling that something magical could happen at any second. Then came the bold decision to move to Paris Saint-Germain, a step that surprised the football world. That choice showed something important about Neymar's personality. He wasn't afraid to take risks, even when critics questioned the decision. Sometimes growth requires stepping away from a comfortable situation and testing yourself somewhere new. Of course, the path was not always smooth. Injuries interrupted important moments. Critics debated whether he had reached his full potential. Fans sometimes expected perfection from him, which is a heavy burden for any human being. Yet despite all those challenges, Neymar continued producing moments that reminded people why football can feel like a form of art. Think about how many children around the world have tried to copy one of his dribbles while playing with friends. A quick step over, a sudden change of direction, a playful smile after beating a defender. These small imitations show the influence a player can have beyond trophies and statistics. And maybe that is where an important lesson hides inside Neymar's story. Success is often complicated. When we are young, we sometimes imagine that greatness follows a straight path. Work hard, succeed, and everything will look perfect. But real lives are more complex. Even the most talented people face doubts, injuries, criticism, and difficult decisions. Have you ever felt that your own path was messy or uncertain? Maybe you started something with excitement, but later faced obstacles you didn't expect. Maybe people around you had strong opinions about what you should or shouldn't do. Neymar's journey reminds us that a life can include both brilliance and imperfection at the same time. You can create beautiful moments and still struggle. You can reach extraordinary heights and still feel the pressure of expectations. What matters most is continuing to move forward. The boy who once played futsal in tight indoor courts carried that playful spirit into the biggest stadiums in the world. Even after injuries, criticism, and the weight of global fame, the same creative energy often appeared whenever the ball touched his feet. And that brings us back to something simple. Whatever dream you carry in your own life, it probably began in a small, quiet moment. Maybe it was curiosity about a skill you wanted to learn. Maybe it was a hobby that made you feel alive. At the beginning, it didn't need an audience. It only needed your attention and your effort. If Neymar's story offers anything worth remembering, it might be this. Talent can open a door, but courage is what pushes you to walk through it. Courage to try, courage to take risks, courage to continue even when the world is watching. So the next time you face a challenge, big or small, think about that young kid running through the streets of Brazil, smiling as he chased a ball. That moment of joy was the starting point for everything that came later. And sometimes the most powerful step toward a big dream is simply continuing to play your own game,